This is the thing for me. Success as a team is 10 times more or worth 10 times more than being successful individually. It just gives me this fulfilling thing like, oh, we're successful together. This guy's successful, he's successful, she's successful. Because early on, I didn't have that person that would make me do this or celebrate this. Whether you're a politician, whether you are an owner of a company, whether you have a family, whether you work for this company, whether you work for that company, whether you are an artist, whether you are a sports person, right? If you lie to yourself, that means you're going to lie to someone else. You will never get to the point where you dream to be or where you want to be or what your potential is. And I think if you're not accountable for your own actions, then it's just, you're not going to go anywhere. I'm sat in New York. I'm looking at the Empire State Building. I've just become a director. And I was like, wow. And when I was younger, like there was times in our family where we pretty much didn't have anything, right? I mean, we ate rice and butter sometimes for lunch. And to kind of go from that to this, that moment was like, wow, this is really big. And that was the first time when I kind of like consciously realized like I was proud of myself.
Welcome to the iGaming Leader Podcast, where we uncover the human side of some of the most inspirational leaders in our industry. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and as an ex-iGaming director turned performance coach, I've worked with over 200 leaders from companies like Entain, 365, Flutter, and many more to help them build the habits to achieve sustainable high performance. In these episodes, we share exactly what it takes for you to achieve the same. So with that being said, let's dive in. Rog, welcome to the iGaming Leader. Super excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite and, really happy, to be here with you.
Hey, I wanted to dive straight in. Your growth in your career has been phenomenal. You became a VP at a very young age, at IDnow, 29 years old. I think take us back to like that specific moment. What was going on through your mind when you got that news and when you first were got that VP position, and how did that go?
I will take it a little bit further again because, sometimes where we are in life and we are super busy and we do things, it's like a reflex, right? And I think the kind of moment where I realized where I was going with my career was when we were doing some market research in the US and we were in New York. There was a conference on the SBC Americas and, we decided to go and see, what's possible in the market, what can we do, et cetera, et cetera. And, at the same time, there was also obviously conversations about where I was going as a person at IDnow or where my career was going. And we're having, let's say, like a final chat during my time when I was in New York. And I was sat in this coffee shop, which was, one of the highest coffee shops you can have in New York. And I was sat in a, silent corner and I was actually looking out at the Empire State Building. And I was talking about, becoming which was like back then, which was director of sales. And obviously, like, whilst you talk about it, it's like, yeah, I want to become this, I want to become that. But after the call, when I was just, sat there and obviously with my new salary and new responsibilities, I was just like, I'm sat in New York, I'm looking at the Empire State Building, I've just become a director. And I was like, wow. And it always takes me back. And I always say this, when I was younger, like there was times in our family where we pretty much didn't have anything, right? I mean, we ate rice and butter sometimes for lunch or like, bread or whatever there was, right? Just to fill you up. And to kind of go from that to this is sometimes like just take it for granted, as we all do. I think certain things we take for granted, but like that moment was like, wow, this is really big. And that was the first time when I kind of like consciously realized like I was proud of myself of what I achieved, and it's a feeling that is hard to describe. I think it's you just have to experience it as like a quiet little minute that you have to yourself. But then I had to jump in a customer call after, so it's like you get to enjoy it and you're back to normality. And yeah, like you said, I think when I became VP, and I will forever be grateful to my old boss back then, Oliver Obatayo, who supported me, took me under his wing, showed me different ways of thinking about business and really opened a lot of things for me, a lot of ways of thinking, a lot of ways to just digest information and not to snappily react out the blue, which I think will always be my weakness, because sometimes it's like the emotions take over and your eagerness to do things. And I need to react right now, but sometimes just to sit back, think about it, have a night's sleep over it. And yeah, obviously when I, let's say, signed a new contract and everything, it is very American, right? I mean, as Europeans, I mean, the job title has only been here for a few years, I think, but it's like you then kind of feel a different way of responsibility, if you know what I'm saying. Like, even though I don't own the company, I'm not on the board or anything, but you start feeling like a different responsibility. Like, I have to do this in order to achieve this, and then you start seeing the bigger picture. And I don't know, you just understand more things automatically. After the whole journey that I've been on and I'm still on, you kind of start to realize a few things. It takes a lot out of you, I would also say, mentally, of course, but I think also physically, because if you're traveling, you're under stress, you have to be there, you have to be here. I'm running late with this, or I have to deliver this by then. And life in sales is not easy. I mean, people always see like, oh yeah, salespeople do this, blah, blah, blah. But you've seen in the way, and you've interacted with people, of course, especially in a new venture now, it's very stressful. It takes a lot out of you. And if you don't take care of yourself, it then really starts, you really then get into some sort of vicious circle, because if you start putting on weight, then, subconsciously, like, I don't feel well in myself, I want to do this. Then you see pictures of yourself, like, wow, Jesus, I didn't realize I looked like the Michelin Man and stuff like that. And let's say stop it and just have a minute and, okay, how am I going to do this? And then I think whilst in work, you always have goals. You are setting yourself goals. You want to go here, you want to go there. But then you really forget on the personal side that you should be doing that as well. But, it's so easy, right? You just get home, it's like, order a takeaway. It's like, yeah, I'll start tomorrow. Like, today's the last day. Then you maybe do 1 or 2 days, then something happens, and then your body and your brain is in this state, oh yeah, I need something sugary, or I need this, or I need that in order to cope with it. It's hard. Again, when I started it, which was at the end of July last year, and I really did like very, very strict 3 months on like 1,000 calories a day, which the first 2 weeks it was headaches, your body's on strike, or your brain sending signals like, I want this, but you're fighting it. It was hell. But then after 10 or 14 days, you're like, yeah, this is actually fine. I feel well myself. Then I started being active again, going to the gym, going for walks. And walks do wonders, right? Literally, when you're just out by yourself,
game changer.
You put your AirPods in and you just start walking. And I always say to everyone, this is the best medicine for anything in life, really. Just have some fresh air.
Yeah, well done, Roger. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the progress in your career, and specifically what you said there earlier about, you come from a time and a family where it's not always been easy. You've had times where you've had it really tough. And how's that shaped you as a professional, and how's that helped you maybe make the progress in your career that you have to date?
I think, and you always see this with sports people, I would say the most successful, an example, MMA fighters, right? They come from nothing. And I think it shapes you in a way where you take nothing for granted, in terms of now have whatever I want, food-wise on the table. I now can do activities I didn't used to do. I can now, my kids don't have to experience any of that, because they get, and not whatever they want for Christmas, what I'm trying to say, in a way, like they don't have to struggle. But I think once you've been in that struggle and you kind of experience it, it really gives you another gear. And this is, I think, the advantage that I have over many, many people in whatever function that is, that I want to do 110% because I want to make sure that I don't have to struggle. And then also at the same time, your ego is there, so you just want to be better. And I think Americans have a great way of describing it, like you got a dog in you on the psychology side, if that's the best thing, to have always flashbacks to like that struggle. But it hasn't been bad to me, let's put it that way. When you've been in that struggle, and people can fall into it in any point in life, right? I mean, they might have a fantastic life, but then things can just go down or whatever. And it's just really about how you pick yourself up and what you want to do with yourself. I had to take that decision quite early on in my life to be better, and I had to be better than everyone else in order to achieve certain things. So that's why I'm so competitive when it comes to also play Monopoly with the family, or, play football with my kids or whatever, So it's finding out early that there is winning and losing. And I think in our society now, this is getting lost a little bit when there's many opinions about it. But my opinion is, if you don't know what winning and losing is and you don't experience it, you will always be expecting things in life, and no one's going to put you a nice life on a silver platter. Have the right people around you to get to know people that will actually get you to the next step, that you can learn from, and also that you can kind of aspire to be like them. Many people don't have that experience, unfortunately, and stagnate in a certain way or go backwards in a sense. So coming back to answer your question, I think it's probably been highly positive throughout my career and throughout my life as well, that I experienced exactly that.
Yeah, it becomes your fuel, right? And I think many people, when you allow it to become your fuel, it also becomes your greatest driver and your competitive advantage, like you said. But making that progress so quickly early on, Rog, must have also given you perhaps some doubts, or perhaps that, that imposter syndrome that we often talk about, that feeling of having to prove yourself harder than everybody else. Like, has that been true for you? And if so, how did that show up for you?
I would say so, yes, because you just like, oh yeah, I got this now, but I don't want to rest with this, and I want to have more. I want to be better than this, and just trying to prove yourself wrong. I think it's true for everyone. Like I was just describing that moment in New York, it's not something that we do enough probably in order to realize where we are. Last week I had sort of like pretty similar conversation with my friends, where it's like, I used to do this and I used to be that, and look at my kids now, look at where my life is, and it's like kind of for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you're like, let's talk about football, let's talk about NFL again. But I think again, that's probably a man thing as well, like a male thing, where we feel that responsibility of having to be better. So, I mean, not saying that females don't do it, but I think the way we as men talk about feelings and how we feel in ourselves, we probably have that conversation with us whilst we're lying in bed and trying to fall asleep. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I need to be better in this, I need to be better in that. Sometimes I struggle, an example, to understand my feelings in a way, because maybe some personal trauma when I was little or whatever, and there's certain things you're just trying to block out because you don't want to deal with it. But at the same time, and I've learned this through, let's say, talking to mental health coaches, in order to overcome things, you have to face those things, because otherwise it will always come back and bite you in the backside. And I'm not saying I'm perfect like that. There's still certain things I don't want to kind of face and whatever, but it's as long as people are aware, or as long as you are aware that this is something you have to do, at some point you will do it. And whether that's whilst you're on a holiday, or whether whilst you're on a plane, or wherever it is in life, I think, as long as you start doing these things, it will come back into your conscience, and you will try and fight it, or you will make out with it and be in peace with it, and just accept, okay, this is what it is. So, and let's just move on.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Roger. It's difficult. I think one of the big things that I see with most high achievers, and I'm sure it's going to be the same with you, is that we don't take a lot of time to celebrate our successes, right? We kind of shrug it off and go, all right, on to the next one. We very often are the most critical person inside of our own head, right? Like pushing ourselves harder and harder, almost holding yourself up to an impossible standard. I'm sure that some of that is the same for you, but what have you changed over time from kind of those things that you were saying to deal with those, perhaps those kind of things a little bit more effectively, or in a way that is more supportive to where you are today?
I think going back to, let's say, celebrating, I think what I do now is that I strongly encourage people that work with me or work for me that they need to celebrate. And I'm not shy to let's say, invest a couple of £100 to buy something nice for the people, or to like, let's go out, let's celebrate. I mean, some of the conferences are always a good point to do it, because then you can go to a restaurant or whatever. And I think we as people, we have to start being nicer to each other again. This is something that over the years, is because everyone kind of focuses on themselves. We need to make sure that we are all right. But let me tell you, and this is the thing for me, success as a team is 10 times more, or worth 10 times more than being successful individually. It just gives me this, I don't know what it is, like a fulfilling thing, like, oh, we're successful together, like this guy's successful, he's successful, she's successful. Because early on, like in my years, I didn't have that person that would make me do this or celebrate this. And all you need is this one moment of appreciation where someone tells you, hey, mate, here's a little bit of a thank you, and these things, they're not normal anymore, right? It's seen as some special thing, which to me, this is normality. I want to give back to the people. I want to make them feel special. It's not just about me. I mean, I talk a lot publicly and people see me the whole time, but in the end of the day, it's the people that I work with that make it happen. I'm now kind of in this cheerleader role where I would get sent to conferences and do those panels, etc. And people didn't hear me talking, but at the end of the day, it's people like Max, Ronaldo, Mike and Bruce that I work with and Guillaume that really make it work. I just want to appreciate it first of all, and want to hopefully show them something that they can use later when they become people managers, because all of them have the skills and all of them are really good at their jobs. When you are showing them, it's like, yes, you did a great job, let's appreciate you. It's something that is hugely important, especially to also morale, because loyalty is not won by paying someone the most money. Loyalty is having a team spirit, teamwork, people feeling as that a tight-knit group, and that's how you take on the world. And you don't take on the world by paying everyone the highest wage. The people that you really want will never leave the company because they're so attached to the team. And I always say, companies don't buy from companies, it's people buying from people. So it's hugely important that everyone is on board and appreciates each other as well. This is super important, and like you said, it gets forgotten so much, and it's a shame.
I love it. And that, actually, to take that even a step further, Roger, people don't work for businesses, they work for people, right? So it's exactly
100%.
Quick break here. If you're a head of, director, VP, or executive in iGaming who's successful at work, but is finding it hard to achieve balance in life and switch off from work, then I've got something that's going to help. On the 3rd of February, we are launching the iGaming Leader Reset, a 6-week coaching program in which I will personally work with 15 iGaming leaders to build habits for sustainable high performance, all in just 20 minutes a day. It's limited to only 15 leaders, so if that's something that you want to know a little bit more about, head over to igamingleader.com, and I hope to see you there. Now let's get back to our conversation. Hey, so you've lost an insane amount of weight, mate. It's like so impressive. Like, I've seen you change, and it's been really inspirational. But talk me through, what was the pivotal moment for you that you thought, I've just got to do something about this now? What was the one moment where you thought, this, like, enough is enough?
Do you know what? I don't think there's been like one big moment, but I think it was just things leading up to it, kind of, in a way. So at the start of the year, we had eyes, and obviously when you're in the Excel in London, you kind of do like 20,000 steps easily every day because you walk in N1 to N10, from S1 to SA, then all that evening activity. To realize, Jesus, like, whilst I was walking, like, my back started getting sweaty and like wet. So we went to the SBC Rio in Brazil, and that was my first time I was ever in Brazil. And what I saw there is no one here is really overweight. Everyone looks after themselves, and I felt like kind of outside of the norm kind of thing. Then we went on holidays in Mallorca with the kids. It's just when it's sunny and then you get all hot and flustered and you can't really walk the steps that you used to do, or you can't run after them the way you used to, or you just don't feel comfortable doing it because I've got a certain shirt on or whatever, and this is me just openly speaking about it. I mean, stuff like that, this is really what's going on in my head here, and sometimes it was very hard to talk about it, but when you actually talk about it, it actually helps you to realize these things. And then kind of I was like, July, and we don't have many hot days in the UK, so it's the very spares, right? And it was like a really hot day, and I was like literally sat like trying to work but feeling uncomfortable, and it's like, and then on like one day, and I'm opening a packet of crisps or chips, if you're American, sorry, and I'm about to go in, and I take the first one out, and I like kind of biting it, but like as I'm eating them, I was like, what am I doing? I'm not even hungry. I just open them because I don't know if it's that thing of like not having enough food back in the day. So like, I don't know if there's a connection between it. I mean, surely there must be, but, and I was like, do you know what? Nah. I will start right now. And I just literally, I didn't say I will start tomorrow. I was like, I put it away. I will start right now. And then I kind of said to myself, look, in order to lose weight, there needs to be a calorie deficit, right? So I was like, okay, so I need 2,500, 3,000 calories a day. I was like, all right, I'll try and do 1,000. It's a nice number. Then I don't need to calculate too much. And so like next day I get up and I was doing intermittent fasting as well. So I wasn't eating until like 1 or 2 p.m. because I think every time I eat breakfast, it makes me eat more actually throughout the day. So I started doing that, honestly, the first 3 or 4 days, man, it was like actual hell. Honestly, it was like literally fighting with myself, fighting urges. And I could just feel my brain is kind of depleted of sugar or depleted or MSG or whatever there is. I was getting headaches. I was getting like mood swings. I was like, oh my God, is this the right thing to do? I was like, no, I'll stick this out. Yeah. So like after 10 days, 11, 12 or whatever it was, I was like, oh, I feel okay now. And I think another thing though was I started drinking a lot more water instead of Coke. When I had the feeling when I drink more, I actually feel less hungry. And I don't know if there is a scientific thing behind it, but that's at least how I felt. And like 2 weeks into it, 3 weeks into it, 4 weeks into it, after 4 weeks, I actually weighed myself the first time. I was like, oh my God, I lost 10 kilos. I was like, what is going on here, you know? But then obviously the next 2 weeks I put on a little bit, so like it wasn't going down as fast because I started going to the gym a lot more. So obviously you build muscles. We all know muscles and fat have a different, obviously muscles way more. So it was going down a lot slower, but that was when I started to see the changes. That was like after 2 months or after nearly 2 months, you know, I was like putting on jeans or like, you know, chinos, whatever it was. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, what's going on here? Because like when I'm at home, I usually just wear shorts and t-shirt or whatever. And I was like, oh my God. And then I started trying on my shirts that I would usually wear to the events and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, they're like actually all too big, or not even like a little bit too big. I was looking like I had a parachute on me basically, you know? And I said, look, I'll do another 4 weeks. Then I'm going to the US for work, and whilst I'm in the US, I don't want to have any constraints to food because everybody loves a nice burger or whatever, or like some mozzarella sticks, and the Americans know how to do it in a you know,
supersize it straight away.
yeah. So do you know what? And then I had like before this trip, I had to go out and buy like pretty much my whole wardrobe again because everything was, you know, I mean seriously, man, like I was in waist size in UK 44, which is, I mean, you know, is huge, right? I mean, you know, if you see the difference between the jeans, that's, I've got 36 on now, you know, so it's, you know, the difference is so big. And so, you know, I went to Miami, there was Sigma Malta, so that was another one, but I kind of didn't have to watch myself really because I was eating maybe like, let's say naughty things, as you would say, and like not super healthy, but I wasn't eating it all the time. So I wasn't having crisps and then eating crisps, eating or whatever. So I was having like 2 meals a day, maybe a little bit too much, or definitely not 1,000 calories. And that's how the journey was. And then obviously during Christmas, put a little bit on, but I wasn't stressing myself because I said to myself, look, I'll take a little bit of time off. And now since the 1st of January, we're back on the train. This time I'm also doing a little bit different. So now in January, doing a carnivore diet, so I'm eating meat products only. So let's see how that goes. So for the first 6 days, absolutely fine. I feel good within myself, and that's what really counts. And like now, I want to get down to 95, and then I want to stay around 95, 100, like somewhere in between there, because I think that's kind of also the weight that I would be comfortable with when, you know, I'm older, not so more mobile, that I can still swing around it.
Oh, well done, man. 21 kilos, right?
Yeah, 21 so far. Yeah. I mean, 21. Then obviously I think it was like 4.5 during Christmas and stuff like that. So which is fine because honestly, like I was probably eating around about, you know, 2 kilos of turkey and potatoes every day, you know. So
no, but well done, Roger. Hey, beyond the scale, what are the differences that you notice? So in work, but also with your kids.
Do you know what? I think with work, the biggest difference is not having this kind of like 3 p.m. crash where you just kind of feel tired and your focus drops and stuff like that. So I think I can hold my focus a lot longer. So that's for sure. I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. And this is a little bit more on the personal life side and a little bit more family. You feel a lot more confident within you. So you don't look left and right, and you can just focus on that one thing, which is obviously like your family and kids and whatnot, right? And it's a lot more enjoyable in a way because I can just chase after them, I can bend down, I can pick them up and run through them, thanks to all the squats that I was doing and whatnot. But when you feel well within yourself and you feel like, okay, I'm in a good place now, and this is like probably 80% of where you want to be in life, feel like you've done something and you are doing something to help it, and the mood swings are a lot less, focus levels with the family and whatnot is totally different. And I mean, I couldn't recommend it more to people. And unfortunately in our industry, or unfortunately a lot in the UK, or let's say Western Europe, there's a lot of people that have become overweight over time, because again, it's just bad habits, like it says behind you, habit rewire. And that's what people really need to start doing, and not just doing whatever's the simplest. But I think, again, it's a little bit of a reflection of society, what I was saying before. We want everything the easy way. Everything has to come to you, but sometimes you got to do the dirty work to get to where you want.
Yeah, I think that's true. And you know what I think is beautiful about it, Roger, is that we often, like you said, we often want the fast route, right? We want the pill to get there and the tick box to do it. But it's actually in a journey, I think, where all of the transformation happens. It's realizing when you suddenly feel comfortable taking your shirt off, when you suddenly have the energy again to run after your kids, when you suddenly don't worry about dying of a heart attack at 50. And those are not tick box moments. They happen along the journey. They don't happen overnight. So what are some of those realizations that you've had along that journey, if any?
Actually, before I answer this, what were yours on your journey?
Well, the ones I just described, like really about crashing after work, feeling completely... So that's what happened to me all the time, right? I would feel brain fried after work. I would down a bottle of wine to unwind. I would not have the energy to play with my kids. I would just lie on the sofa. I would go out all the time because I felt I didn't have a life outside of work. Mm-hmm. And it was that, feeling comfortable enough to take my shirt off on the beach, being able to run after my kids, being able to just play with them again, not having those energy crashes at work, the mood swings. I would get angry all the time at work. Yeah, kind of the things that you described.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still get angry at work. but no, I think the realization that I had was when I was, let's say, in Miami and stuff like that, and I didn't have a care in the world if I had a shirt on or not, and it was like, yeah, well, like whatever. Then, like I said, after the biggest realization was when I tried on all my shirts and stuff like that. I was just thinking to myself, wow, man, that's crazy. Like, I was so big, holy moly, I think that was really when I can visualize things, what I kind of achieved. I think when it comes to that, it's a fulfilling moment. Okay, I'm on the right tracks here, I'm on the right tracks.
Roger, I wanted to, I know you mentioned that mistakes are like, you feel that that's the only way to really get better, right? And to learn. I completely agree with you. However, we all know in iGaming, that's not necessarily a shared mindset everywhere. So can you tell me a little bit more about perhaps even a significant mistake that you've made that shaped you into a better leader today, or how you perhaps use that approach in your day-to-day leadership?
Mistakes are on a scale, I think, right? So everything should be on a...
Don't lose your license, basically.
Yeah. So I think there is mistakes and there is like grave mistakes, right? So I'm not talking about those grave mistakes. I'm talking about all this stuff when you're kind of an example, when you believe that person's word and then it doesn't come off, or you just not had a second look and believed it to be right because you trust in certain processes or people or whatever. And it's just those kind of moments, right? I think did something in a project and it was actually the wrong decision, but it's still reversible and it's fine, right? But again, how do I know that this is the right thing to do, or how do I know that this is not the right thing to do? I think mistakes are there to be learned from. But what I also say is don't do the same mistake twice, because that's really going to cost you then. I think making mistakes should be natural for everybody, and it's something to learn from. But you have to be accountable with yourself, first of all, and you have to come to the realization that you have done a mistake, and don't to try and blame someone else for it, because trust me, and luckily I have never done this, but if you blame someone else behind their backs or whatever, that person will defend themselves and they will have it written. They will have it somewhere. Someone will be there. and it will come back to bite you 10 times more than whatever. So it's just the realization, okay, I have made a mistake. I was wrong to do this. But I think in business, if you come to someone and say, hey, look, I have done this mistake, I should have done this, but I've done this, right? If you go to your line manager, if you go to whatever department this concerns with, and we all do mistakes. There's not a single person in any company that has not made a mistake, from CEO down to the maintenance person in the office. Honestly, we've all done mistakes, which is fine. Do not do it twice and learn from it, realize, and just stand up for it. And people will automatically respect you when you have that realization and when you tell them about it, rather than trying to hide it, because that's something that I hate like nothing more, when people start making up some stories or whatever and want to hide their mistakes. Because again, we sometimes forget to just get on with things and solve things, and just keep going on about the problem. You just circle the problem and you're like, oh, this is so bad. This is, yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. But what are you going to do to make it better? What does it need to make it better? You know, I think mistakes are there to make you better as a person. And if you don't make mistakes, you are definitely doing something wrong. So, you know, honestly,
The thing is, you're being mediocre.
Like, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
You just live in the middle and you're being mediocre. So, but what I hear back from you again and again through this entire conversation, right, is how much value you place on accountability and taking ownership for your own actions. So, tell me a little bit more about that, Roger. Like, why has that been so important for you, probably throughout your career?
We all have some sort of moment back when we were like 16, 17, 18 or whatever, when it just clicks and you're like, okay, now I need to focus on doing something in my life. Or there might be a next click even later when it comes to other life-changing decisions like having kids or buying a house or whatever, right? But once it clicked for me, I was like, okay, what do successful people do? And I was looking at different people, and one that really stood out for me was Steve Jobs, because he said openly in one of the presentations that we as a company, and I as a person, because I am responsible for this company, have done wrong things, but here's what we're going to do to solve them. And I was like, oh my God, like, why doesn't everybody else do that? Let's say, you know, people that are successful, the most successful politicians even, saying, I have done a mistake here and this is what we're going to do to make it better. I don't want to hear like all these excuses and whatever it is, right? And it goes through life, whether you're a politician, whether you are an owner of a company, whether you have a family, whether you have a wife, husband, whether you work for this company, whether you work for that company, whether you are an artist, whether you are a sports person, right? If you lie to yourself, that means you're going to lie to someone else. You will never get to the point where you dream to be or where you want to be or what your potential is. And I think if you're not accountable for your own actions, then it's just, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to stay in this little dream world of yours that you have. And I just don't have the respect for those people. I think the world would be in a lot better place if we would stop doing these things. And again, I'm not asking everyone to be perfect, because we're not perfect, but at least try to do it. I still do some of these things, right? But I have the realization and I reflect on myself and think, do you know what? That wasn't that cool. Let me go back to this person and say sorry. I apologize for what I did. I can't reverse it. The words that I said were, that's what I felt in the moment. What can we do to make it better? And that's all you need to do.
I love it. No, I love it, Roger. It's so important. Extreme ownership is, I think, also the only way to go, because then there's no one else to blame, right? It's just you. It's just you, and you can take action for the things that you can control, and that's it. And you take ownership.
And the best people around you, and this is why I know some people that say that they have like 40 or 50 friends or nurture those relationships. But let me tell you what, out of those 40 or 50 people, there's probably only 2 or 3 that will actually tell you, no, what you are doing here is wrong. Like, you know, you need to look back, and these are the people you need to focus on, you know, not the person that tells you, oh, you know, Roger, what you did here is so good. And then you do something and they say, yeah, that was so good, Roger. You know, you are the best person in the world and stuff like that. There's a big difference between friends and acquaintances, right? There's a huge difference, and it'll be the same for you if you're working in the industry. Is you get to know so many people. A lot of them are really cool people, but work is work and personal is personal. The issue is once you start crossing this barrier, it's then very hard to have that realization. So what I try and do is like, okay, who's actually the person that's going to tell me off for being an idiot? So, and that's going to be like my 2 or 3 really, really good friends that I had all my life. And of course you can have new friends, and I got to know some fantastic people since I moved from Germany here that also supported me and have been there for me. One of the examples is one of my colleagues now, James, that I work with. When I moved to another company, he was there to mentor me. He was helping me with the language as well, because let me tell you, as a German, I thought my English was brilliant and I could understand a lot, and I was really into hip hop, rap and whatnot, right? And I was watching US TV shows. Like when you come to Manchester, man, there is 8 different accents in Manchester, right? He helped me quite a lot with that, and he translated a lot of jokes for me, which, it might seem stupid, but there's not many people that will do that for you and still support you through the way. So, it's sometimes obviously because we work together and forget to do that kind of the friendship side of things when we do and when we talk with each other. But when you come back to each other, you're like, yes, this and this and this, and you have a great connection. And also with people like Steven and Chris, those people are like really friends that I care a lot about their opinion. I genuinely do. If they tell me something like, Roger, maybe stop doing this, or this was a little bit over the top or whatever, it's like, oh, I don't just shrug it off. I go back and think, well, yeah, you were right. And we all need that. We all need that sort of check-in and the people to tell us off.
Hey, last question, Roger. You've made some really fast progress in your career. Anybody kind of looking, maybe feeling that they're, let's say they're late 20s, early 30s, also maybe wanting to move in directorship, VP type of positions. Perhaps they feel that they're a little bit out, have a little bit of a ceiling somehow. What's your best advice for someone that wants to progress in their career and, move forward?
I think, again, like I said, as long as you are self-aware and you set yourself goals and you want to go to these things, but it's not as easy sometimes. You have to be also at the right place at the right time, because certain politics and whatever in certain companies, I mean, how it works. Sometimes you just can't get past that stage because those people have been around for 20 years or they are friends with, and it is very hard. You have to assess the situation as it is and just be as brutal as you want to be with yourself, with the company, with your situation, with your career, because that's the only way how you're going to move forward. There is a difference between a company, you not reaching that step because of certain political aspects, but there might also be certain aspects you have to show people growth, and sometimes you also have to shout about it. And I would just encourage anyone really, whether you're male, female, whatever you class yourself as, and just make sure that it is acknowledged. Don't do it silently every step of the way, because people will just take it for granted. And again, going back to this conversation about celebration and whatever, so like make sure that people acknowledge it, but also at the same time, you have to have a manager that is supporting you for you to grow, right? Because you have to have that person. And if none of these things are existed, then it's probably time for a change, unless you want to look. There's some people that feel very comfortable working 9 to 5 and that's all they want to do, right? I always say to people, look, that's absolutely fine, because there's only 0.01% of people that have really, let's say, the qualities to be the leaders and to be persistent and to also have the nerves and to sacrifice the family time and whatnot. And I mean, it is what it is. Don't be drawn into these conversations where, or like things that you see on social media is like, yeah, you were born to be great and you have to do this and you have to do that. No, do what you are comfortable with, but at the same time, where do you want to go? And
yeah,
it's a very tough conversation, but I'm sure, Leo, with your company, you also help a lot of people to realize that and come to that realization. What am I comfortable with? What do I really want to do? I can't recommend it enough to go and speak to you and just, a good chat and, with someone who's been there, done that and done it all the time and has like kind of reborn himself as like a rebirth of a person to go into direction for people. It's just like, be honest with yourself. You don't have to be the best person in the world. You don't have to do that. You can also be comfortable with living as you are. And if you're happy, then do you know what? then you are happy. So what else do you want? But for those people that really, really want to take it far, it's like you have to assess the situation, work damn hard for it, of course, but also do not underestimate the lucky factor here. There is luck in there, and be with people that will be able to give you some new things in your life, that are able to teach you something, or that are able to pick you up. Be around positive people. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't, cut all the negativity out.
It kind of comes back to the same thing. The journey is the goal, right? Not the end result. And I think very often we forget that the journey is actually where all of the happiness happens. Not because when you look at the end goal for the happiness to happen, you will never find it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you will remember the taxi ride you had at 1 a.m. You will remember how you spilled the coffee over your shirt before a big meeting. You will remember how you made a mistake here. And you will remember what you did at that point in time. But what you will not remember is signing a new employment contract. That's that I can tell you for sure. So,
yes,
like you say, the happiness comes in the process, but you just have to choose a journey to be in that process. That's exactly it.
Hey, Roger, thank you very much for being on the iGaming Leader. Love talking to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And, thanks for letting me talk for that long.
Thank you for joining me on the iGaming Leader podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, head over to igamingleader.com for more conversations and insights. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. I'm your host, Leo Judkins, and I hope to see you next week.